All right, welcome everybody to this weekly edition of The Wrap. I'm Travis Fain, one of WRAL's state government reporters.
And I'm Paul Spey, another state government reporter who also does PolitiFact.
And we had a busy week. Somebody announced a run for governor, and then someone had run into a car, so no one cared about that anymore. And all anybody wanted to talk about is State Auditor Beth Wood and why she ran her state vehicle into a parked car in downtown Raleigh on December 8th. To the extent that it ended up kind of on the hood of the other car, kind of halfway. We've got pictures online, WRAL.com, and then left. Was not there when the police got there and has been charged with a misdemeanor version of hit and run, which means nobody was injured. And we don't really know why the accident happened or what she was doing beforehand.
Right. And to me, what's interesting about this is not just the details, which we haven't, really we don't have all the details yet. It's that Beth Wood, in the grand scheme of North Carolina politics, a lot of people don't know who she is. She's been around a while as state auditor.
Fourth term right now, fourth term.
Right. And she's one of the few Democrats who's able to win these statewide elections, right? Her and Stein and Cooper and then Elaine Marshall, Secretary of State Elaine Marshall, are like sort of the core four Democrats who run for these council state jobs and just keep winning. But for the most part, they don't make news like a Cooper or a Stein or Tim Moore, House Speaker, Senate Leader Phil Berger. She's sort of off to the side. So when this popped up, and we heard rumors that some sort of news was going to happen because we saw, a Dallas Woodhouse tweet. And then we saw who it was. It was, there obviously aren't as many eyes on Beth Wood as there are these other huge figures. So now everyone's just trying to connect the dots and play this game of like Clue of, what was she doing and what exactly happened here?
Yeah, and why do you leave the scene, and then why do you go, I guess 2 days at this point, a little bit more, without explaining it to anybody? I mean, in our world, rarely is there a reason to stay silent about something unless the truth is bad. She does, of course, face this criminal charge, but it's a misdemeanor criminal charge. I don't know, so why won't you explain what happened here? I mean, people are so willing to forgive if you kind of come out and say what happened, but when a vacuum will be filled. And so now you got me and people like me calling other council of state members saying, hey, what do you think should happen here? And they don't know because.
And to be clear, she has not been convicted of anything. She's not said she's guilty of anything. All we know are the incident and arrest reports that we've seen, and then the comments from Wake County District Attorney Lauren Freeman, things like that. So
she's been charged.
It's still
no
possible.
one disputes that it was her state vehicle that ran into this other car, and then it was left running and no one was there.
Right. So that's why there are lots of questions when we talk about, why would you leave the scene? That's not a you, Beth Moore, not talking to you. We're obviously speaking hypotheticals here.
Hey, how do you think this impacts her, assuming that the fact pattern as we know it now, to the extent that it continues to evolve, stays in this same area? Can she run for re-election? She's up in 2024.
What's funny is I think about things that look bad, and certainly what we've seen in the news doesn't look good about this traffic accident. But then I think about all the other things that have not looked good and have looked very bad from some of our own representatives in Congress, like Madison Cawthorn saying the things that he does. And, and then there's George Santos, the new New York congressman who no one knows if that's really his real name, and what crimes he's alleged to have committed crimes in other countries, and so it's like, the
rules are morphing on us, aren't they? The mores, you just don't know what is and is not going to lodge with the voters. I mean, here's probably the appropriate place to mention that when Wood won her fourth term in 2020, the Republican that she was running against, when he won his nomination for the Republican Party at for state auditor, he had pending stalking charges against him, and was selected by the Republican Party to be their nominee. So
this is a good segue back to Josh Stein's announcement, Attorney General Josh Stein's announcement that he'll run for governor in 2024, presumably against Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. And it's a good segue because it brings us back to the question, what is disqualifying? And if you watched Stein's campaign launch video,
Right.
it includes audio bites of Mark Robinson saying what might be offensive to a lot of people, that God called on David to slay Goliath and not Davida, in his words.
Calls on men to lead
Calls
as
on
opposed
men
to women.
lead, right, and all sorts of other stuff. So you're like, all right, there are other Democrats in Pennsylvania and Arizona who have been able to disqualify the other candidate for being too radical. But if we're talking about what the line is, what the public isn't willing to accept, I don't know. Do you know?
No. Look, the line is where the public says it is, as it should be, right? I mean, that's how democracy works. And a lot of times, if you talk to one voter, you've talked to one voter. It just people make up their own minds, and they decide what is and is not going to be okay with them. And that line has clearly shifted in our society. Let's talk a little bit. Although I will say, last thing on this, she as state auditor, trustworthiness, accountability, transparency, these are extremely important things when you're talking about a state auditor, and things where in the past audits have come out of her office and she has taken other people, other entities to task for not being accountable, for not answering questions. Sometimes you'll see in an audit like, well, we called this many times and they just won't answer the questions. And that's, duly noted there. So an auditor might be a little bit different job.
Who audits the auditor, Travis? I'm asked all the time, who fact checks the fact checkers, but I don't know who audits the auditors.
The voters, every 4 years, I think. So we'll see. She's 68. I don't know if she will run again. We'll see. I mean, we'll just wait for some of the facts to come out, but it is frustrating when that process is slowed by a lack of willingness to talk. So let's talk about Josh Stein a little bit. The Attorney General, as you said, running for governor in 2024. We don't know of another Democrat running right now, so this may be a coronation on the Democratic side. We'll see if anyone else pops up. What do you think there?
Well, people like former Governor Pat McCrory told us for our story that's out today about Stein's chances that Stein's jumping in early to try to box out other contenders, right?
Right.
And there's not sort of an obvious choice for the Democrats other than Stein. I guess you could speculate. You could say someone like, oh, Jeff Jackson, he's a legislator. He just won a congressional seat. Same with Wiley Nickel. Maybe they could parlay that into a run for governor if their congressional lines are changed or if their seats, if their districts are taken out from under them, whatever. But I think Jackson came out and expressed his support for Stein. I didn't see if Nickel did.
I don't know about Nickel, but I do know Robert Reeves, the House Minority Leader, a number of Democrats had hoped he'd throw his hat into this governor's race. He is an early endorser of Josh Stein, so that's not going to happen.
Right, so that leaves sort of lesser-known people, and one name that does stand out is Michael Regan. He was at, DEQ or Diener?
He was the Secretary of the Environment for Cooper, and he is now I guess they call it EPA Administrator for the Biden administration.
Right, and that's the top guy.
Right.
And so he's African-American. He's been around. He came here, I think, to support Sherry Beasley in her U.S. Senate campaign, if I'm not mistaken. But people have thrown his name out there and said, hey, would he be willing to come back and run if things get tight, if it looks like Stein can't pull this off, if if people are willing to fund him? And so I reached out to Regan and got an email response from his EPA office today that says, quote, Administrator Regan is focused on doing his job President Biden appointed him to do, and that's delivering clean air and clean water for all people, confronting the climate crisis, and ensuring a healthier future for our children, end quote.
That's not a no.
I don't see a no in there.
That's not a no. It's not a yes either. So we'll see. I mean, what we know for now is that Josh Stein is the obvious front runner. He's a prolific fundraiser. He has been a very successful politician. He's got a compelling story. That video you mentioned, announcement video, did spend a lot of time on Mark Robinson, which is unusual at this stage of a race. But I guess when you've got someone as bombastic as the lieutenant governor, you take advantage of that early and often. But the start of that video was talking about his dad, who was a civil rights attorney and whose office was firebombed back in, I believe, 1971 in Charlotte. And it was I had never heard that story before, probably should have. That's on me. But kind of talking about how that's where Stein himself comes from, and then talking about modern day bomb throwers, quote unquote. It showed footage from January 6th, the attack on the Capitol, and then it pivots to Robinson. So it's a well put together campaign, and he again is going to raise a ton of money, which is so important. And he's had a high profile nationally. He's well known for being a big part of various opioid settlements. He has taken on a number of large companies with other attorneys general around the country. So, he'll be a formidable opponent. And if Robinson gets through a Republican primary, which we would think he would, it'll be formidable on that side too. Although I don't know how you appeal to the middle when you're Mark Robinson.
I had one Republican strategist tell me that any Republican candidate who tries to jump in the primary against Mark Stein will be a squirrel.
Okay, against Mark Robinson.
What did I say?
Mark Stein.
Oh my gosh.
Hey, wait. Did we just bridge the gap?
There we go. Problem solved. Bipartisanship is on the way. No, any Republican who jumps in the GOP primary against Mark Robinson will be, quote, a squirrel in the road, end quote. And the strategist said, have you ever seen a squirrel win a battle with a car? No. And so it seems inevitable, at least in those Republican corners. It'll be interesting to see. And one thing about Stein and the North Carolina Attorney General in general is that Cooper used that platform to obviously make the leap to governor, running on his record of being the top prosecutor. And now Stein's trying to do the same thing. It wouldn't shock me if the next Democrat to run for that position of Attorney General also tried to, again, parlay it into a run for governor. Because, and I say that because as Attorney General, you have this freedom, this platform to sort of control your own fate and narrative. You can, go after Juul, the vaping company or whatever. You can go after them and, put that on your resume. Whereas, if you're a legislator, especially a Democratic one in North Carolina, you file a bill, might not go anywhere. I don't know. So you can sort of build your resume faster in that position than you can if you're someone elected down at the Capitol.
Yeah, it's a strong platform. Turning to some news that came out today, Friday, we're recording this about 3:30 or so. Voter ID and redistricting, the kind of never-ending tandem of election law lawsuits that run throughout our state. You all may remember the Supreme Court, state Supreme Court, threw out Republican-drawn maps. Was it last year? Or I guess it was in 20. It was relevant for last year. Also throughout the voter ID law, said that it was unconstitutional. Well, now Republicans, Speaker of the House Tim Moore announcing today, they have asked the state Supreme Court to reconsider those issues. Well, what happened? What might change between last year and this year where the state Supreme Court might change its mind? And I'm guessing that you can predict for me what the difference is here.
I know this one. Democrats controlled the state Supreme Court last year, and then after the elections, they lost, and now Republicans control the Supreme Court.
That's right. So the Speaker and other Republicans asking them to take another look now that the majority has shifted. These, by the way, are the Harper v. Hall and Holmes v. Moore cases, if you're keeping your scorecard up at home, which you kind of have to do with these cases. Moving on, Rebuild NC. That is kind of the beleaguered state effort to rebuild homes after Hurricanes Matthew and Florence down in eastern North Carolina. It has struggled through federal red tape. It has struggled to get things done. There have been a number of hearings. Lisa Sorg at NC Policy Watch has done excellent work trying to hold the Cooper administration to account on this, as has our own team. There was a documentary that I will recommend to everybody that WRAL did about this process. Well, a new face is moving over to the program to kind of try to get things moving faster. His name is Richard Trumper. He is now with OSBM, the Office of State Budget and Management, which had a similar state-funded recovery program. This is a federally funded program that comes with some more rules. So he's moving over there as of February 1. His title will be Senior Advisor for Disaster Recovery. So, I mean, this is the Cooper administration making a move to shore up, speed up a program that it's been clear to everybody has not moved quickly enough for people.
What's interesting about this is, for a while, Republicans thought this could be Cooper's Achilles heel in the 2020 election. Is hurricane recovery. That's that what they I remember back in the day prepared to attack him on, and then the pandemic happened, and
Right.
A lot of that stuff was out of the spotlight. But as our own colleagues here at RAL have pointed out in their work, there's still a lot of work to be done.
Yeah. So hopefully that gets moving a little bit faster. By the way, I asked the governor's office, if this is an acknowledgement of the problems, which the governor has acknowledged that this is a problem, but he's also been supportive of the people over at Rebuild NC, the executives over there. And I got kind of a milquetoast statement, but they said getting people back in their homes faster is a top priority for this administration, and Mr. Trumper's work and experience will be an asset as they continue that mission. I got a couple things to note from the Board of Governors, and you may not have a ton to weigh in here, so I'll just run through them. Joe Killian has a piece at NC Policy Watch, resolution or an item moving through the Board of Governors this week, through the committee level, I believe, basically saying that any discussion about political debates, beliefs, affiliations, you can't do that. You can't ask people about that in the employment or enrollment process. So, basically it's trying to get DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion out of the hiring process at UNC. That's obviously going to be controversial. I'll just kind of recommend that people go read Joe's story over on NC Policy Watch about that. Also, so at the Board of Governors meeting Thursday morning, University System President Peter Hans made some remarks. It's common for people to kind of make opening remarks. And basically, he wants to overhaul the way professors on campuses, all 17 campuses across the state, are assessed and maybe even paid, normalizing, for lack of a better word, normalizing is my word here, non-tenure positions as the dominant form of professorship on university campuses. So you expect only kind of limited research and scholarship from those positions. They focus on teaching, and they get trained specifically to teach, and kind of remove the stigma from non-tenure track jobs and potentially increase the pay. This has been a source of friction on university campuses, probably to time immemorial, because these non-tenured, these adjunct professors, they do a ton of the actual teaching, and these tenured folks often, they teach, but they often have research projects, or they're higher profile, they're better paid, and it sounds like Hans wants to make a move on that.
Yeah, and it's funny how often these things come up, especially, and they seem to have more traction these days with more and more people complaining about the cost of going to college, right? Even if it is a state school. And so, at least in the public sphere, I imagine that they'll find some support among people who say, like, yeah, anything to cut down on the cost of college. I'm not sure this would do it. Full disclosure, I don't know anything about how universities work. All I know is what I read in the news, and I know that people have complained for a while now about the cost of college being way too high. And so it doesn't surprise me that the next guy to come in this leadership role is saying, like, oh, well, I know where we can cut. Let's not pay these professors so much and make it easier to let them go. Well,
and I don't know, do you cut salaries? Probably not. I think it's more about raising salaries for the non-tenured track, for the adjunct professors who do a lot of this work. Hans said that there will be a series of working groups over the coming months. And then this is a quote: "The scholars who carry much of the teaching responsibility on our campuses need to be treated," he wants to make sure they are treated and have opportunities for advancement. It's past time that we develop a more rewarding career path for non-tenured faculty and make sure that the academic workload on our campuses is carried fairly. So that's a potential big deal in the making. Also from the Board of Governors, several Board of Governors members are upset to the point where they use some strong language about a consultant's report that came out looking at colleges of education at the various campuses, and basically determined that they're not doing a very good job in most cases about teaching prospective teachers. So students in college who plan to become teachers or going through some sort of teacher prep program, not doing a good job of teaching them how to teach the science of reading. The science of reading refers to some literacy reforms that passed the state legislature in 2021. They were they drew from some reforms that happened in Mississippi and saw some reading gains. And so the feeling is that we're not doing a good enough job teaching teachers how to adopt that curriculum. A resolution passed the Board of Governors pressing these campuses to do a better job. Last thing on my list is that the Blue Cross Blue Shield contract to administer the state health plan, which is supposed to shift to Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield and United Healthcare, which also bid on this contract, they protested the state treasurer's office decision to give that contract to Aetna, this multi-billion-dollar contract to Aetna. Those protests were rejected as of, was it today, I guess, that the Friday that the treasurer's office announced that. That was an expected step. It's like you're asking the referee to decide if the referee is right, and he says, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I was correct there. So the next step is a lawsuit. We move it to the court system. We'll see if Blue Cross Blue Shield and United Health do that. I assume they will. Blue Cross says that they are going to make further efforts. I assume that means.
And we should clarify this. The new contract with Aetna doesn't start until 2025, right?
That's exactly right.
So if you're a state employee, you still no need to panic yet about your coverage and what it looks like.
Right.
It's still 2 years away before this kicks in. So I honestly don't know what I should say how this will work out with so many people protesting and claiming that they could have saved the government more money. And when I say so many more people, I mean Blue Cross and United Health. So I don't know how it works. It'll be interesting to see.
These protests tend to get ugly fast, but we'll see. What ultimately a judge says if Blue Cross Blue Shield and United Healthcare want to push it that far. That's all I've got. You got anything else?
I think I saw Madison Cawthorn eating some sort of animal heart on social media. I felt the need to share that with people because the algorithms on my social media still show me what Madison Cawthorn is doing. So thought I would just share that as well. The Cawthorn watch.
Yeah, well, that's always a fruitful topic of conversation, I think. Eat your heart out, North Carolina. We hope that you have a wonderful weekend.